Howdy, everyone. Tad Stevens on the Success Secrets podcast, where we focus on business psychology and marketing and how you can use that in your business daily and long term. Today, I'm talking with Blaine Bertsch. Did I say that right, Blaine?
That's it. That's exactly right.
Oh, super. Blaine is the co-founder and CEO at Dry Run. He oversees strategic direction and core operations for the company and the software platform. In 2019, he released his first book, Pandemic Cash Flow, which explores the problems businesses face and offers collaborative and effective solutions to crushing that affliction. As a master's of design from the University of Alberta, more than 15 years successful entrepreneurial experience in graphic design, interactive design, and educational and cultural space and television. Blaine empowers and advises entrepreneurs and mature businesses throughout Alberta and beyond in the online space, as well as locally in Edmonton. His mission is to have a long-lasting positive impact on businesses all over the world by helping them collaborate with their accounting team to manage cash flow and grow. Blaine, welcome. Introduce yourself and let me know if I missed anything.
Thank you so much. Well, you know what, the one thing that I found, he said 15 years of entrepreneurial experience. I'm like, wow, that's probably about a 5-year-old bio. Because I think I started my first business in around 99. So it's I guess I should update that bio a little bit.
So 20, we'll say 20 plus.
20 years. I've been around in this game for a while here. Yeah.
All righty. So today, what I want to start with is, if you could go back in time and you could change one decision, life, business, combination of both, first off, would you change it? And if so, what would you change it to?
You know, it's funny because that's a tough question for me, because as you know, I guess as an entrepreneur and just the way I'm wired, I look forward and look forward and look forward, and probably to a flaw. I'm always trying to climb over that next mountain, right? So it's hard for me because I think everything I've done in the past, I've learned something from, right? If I could change something though, is I think I would have, and you hear this from entrepreneurs quite often, been a little more aggressive and jumped a little bigger, a little faster. You know, like, because now you look back and you see these opportunities like, man, I could have pushed that harder. There was maybe an opportunity there that I should have pushed a bit harder. We would have got things, and it's hard because at the time it's risky to do that. It's you're adding risk, you're adding money, but sometimes the bigger risk is sort of, being too cautious. And I think looking back every once in a while, I'm like, you know what, I probably could have jumped and pushed a little harder there. But of course, that's always hindsight. And that's, I like to learn from that, but I don't like to dwell on it.
Comfortable is, in fact, I was talking to my son this morning and I was telling him being comfortable is limiting, or can be limiting. It's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just, it can limit you because you're where you are and you're happy with it. So in kind of that line, have you ever had one or more decisions in your life or points in your life where you look back and you look at your life as everything that happened before that and everything that happened after that? You have something super positive that happened that's a point like that.
Well, I think the big one for me, especially as an entrepreneur, is like I sold my business in. There's sort of 2 points. Number one was that recession that started in 2008. We had to do some fundamental shifts in 2009, and the learnings that came with the recession and the way we had to transform our business to survive and then to grow again was fundamental, because I think it led to Dry Run. It led to what I'm doing today with cash flow management, forecasting software. But the big one for me was I sold that business in 2012. And it's not like I had the idea for Dry Run right away. So it took a while to get into this idea that became Dry Run. But that was a fundamental shift, because if I had instead sort of bought out my partner and stuck with the business, I'd be in a fundamentally different place, because it was a service business and we had big bills every month, and you're looking at, like, you need that cash coming in, and we would have had to keep that momentum up and the services up. And I don't know if I could have built a product like I have now And so I got this opportunity to go, let's sort of start over, and I don't have an office full of staff and expenses that I have to maintain. Suddenly it's like, I got a blank sheet in front of me. What am I really interested in? What do I want to do? And that turned into Dry Run.
Okay, well, cool. So that, in a way, or the recession, or the whatever, the collapse or crisis or whatever, 2008 and 9, caused that, or really led to it. Maybe not caused it, but led to it in a way.
Absolutely. And it's, you know, I've heard that from so many other entrepreneurs that are kind of my vintage too, that that was a fundamental shift in one way or another. It sometimes it killed businesses off. Sometimes it forced them to innovate and change. Sometimes it spurred on a new direction. And that really was the same thing for me. And I actually think what we're going through now, and it's absolutely awful and hit harder and will be worse, I'm sure, than what happened in 2008, 2009. But it's going to be a fundamental shift for a lot of business owners. Unfortunately, it'll be the end for some business owners for their business. But for some, it'll be an opportunity to go in a different direction and to innovate. There'll be a lot of innovation that'll come out the other side of this. And so, you know, I know there'll be a lot of hard times and negativity, but just to focus on some of the positive things, there will be some innovation that's going to come out of this, pace of change, really an acceleration of change. And some of that will, you know, be for the better as well.
Yeah. And I was talking to a guy a couple of weeks ago, and he was an entrepreneur like myself, like you. And he was saying in his estimate that basically the pandemic accelerated the online automation, basically SaaS related services by like 10 years in a period of as many months. Absolutely. Just because people, I mean, it's where everybody went. It's like, I'm sure everybody knows Zoom and the problems they had at the very beginning of the pandemic. They've recovered. They're doing pretty good now, but yeah, they got slammed. And so, you know, they were flexible enough to come out of it. So yeah, no, I see that too and agree with that. So, and this kind of relates to that, in that when you sold your business back in 2012 and you started looking around, did you ever get stuck, or did you ever, as you were moving around looking for what to do? And today, you're a creative guy, you have a background in design. So creativity to me doesn't always just come when I snap my fingers. So something as small as maybe writer's block, but as big as maybe starting a new business or a new project. Do you have things that you do, techniques, methods that you do to get unstuck, to keep moving forward, to keep your juices flowing so you don't just stagnate, that you can share?
Yeah, no, absolutely. There's so at that time, I was doing, some consulting work, and a lot of us, of course, was design related and process related and things like this. That sort of started to feed things a bit. But what resulted in Dry Run, and also in a lot of the consulting work, were relationships and conversations. So I always say that how I got to the point where I started to say we're going to tackle what ended up being Dry Run, was, I always say, I bought about 50 cups of coffee and probably 50 beer as well. And fortunately, I'd been an entrepreneur in Edmonton for, well, at that point, about 12 years or whatever, I guess. And I had quite an extensive network, which meant I could sit down with a bunch of entrepreneurs, and it was, I guess, is over a coffee or a beer, you start chatting. And I kept coming back to, this is a challenge I had in 2009. This is how we overcame. What did you guys do? And I would just kept coming back to this problem of, how the heck did you guys manage through? How did you manage your cash flow? How do you figure out your sales pipeline? Because I was just really interested in those fundamental things, along with just talking with entrepreneurs like we're talking today. And that led to where I was going. So I never felt in a way like I had much of a block, but it was because I didn't sit, and it's weird. Like the one thing I will admit, that I sold my business, and one of the things that was the most bizarre thing was, the next week, all of a sudden, like, my email's empty and my phone's not ringing. And it's gone from hundreds of emails and phone calls constantly to suddenly I've got a new email address and I've got nothing. And it's like, what's going on? So, wow. I started reaching out to people and going, let's go for coffee. Let's go for coffee. Let's go grab beer. And that, you know, and I kind of, now I look at my email, I'm like, oh man,
it would be nice if it did slow down. Yeah.
That it did slow down, but that's where I started. I didn't just sort of sit in my house going, what am I going to do? Or wait for people to come to the door. I just started reaching out to people, and sitting down and having conversations. And it's amazing because, first of all, work starts coming in right away, and I'm starting to do stuff right away. But I knew, I'm like, I don't want to go back into building an agency and getting an office and hiring a bunch of people and all that. That wasn't, so I just sort of said, I'm going to stick with this consulting for a while. But what kept coming back as I'm going to these conversations, I started finding this area, and I kept digging a little more. And finally I thought, you know what, I'm going to tackle this problem. And so it started to lead into that, initially just an idea. And an idea is like, everyone's got ideas. It's not, but there's an idea, there's a problem. It's not an idea. It's a problem that I can solve. And so I started in from almost a design perspective of how would I solve this problem? And then, you know, fast forward a few years later, and it's not a design problem. Now it's a business problem. And it's, you know, it's like, I'm not a designer anymore. Now I'm an entrepreneur trying to grow something and build something that's global. It's not what I signed up for originally, but that's where we are. Right.
Well, I've always heard that, and I think the first time I heard it was in a sales book, is that if you're not creating new problems in your business, you're not growing. So it sounds like whatever you're doing is working to some degree because you're creating new problems. But that is something that I want to pass on and make sure everybody understands that, or that's listening, in my opinion, is that if you have a business and you don't have any challenges, then be scared, because there's something wrong.
Something's around the corner.
Yeah, something's coming. And so, you know, just keep your eyes open. Anyway. Okay. So next issue is kind of related to all of it together that we've been talking about, is that if you had to start over from scratch, knowing what you know now, knowing where you want to be now, what would you do different, if anything? Or would you just say, yeah, this worked out just like I wanted it to?
You know, like, I really am passionate about product, and in a way that I think we can move mountains with it, where we're a service company, lots of little projects, but I never felt in a way like we were doing interesting things and e-learning things and that, but it never felt like we were fundamentally changing the world, which I know sounds, now entrepreneurs always talk about changing the world, but that's what it feels like we're doing now. It's like we can impact hundreds of thousands of businesses. We can millions. We can move the needle with businesses. And to me, it's not the businesses, it's the business owner. It's the owner operator that, just like you and I are, you know, have to make this work and have to pay the bills and have mouths to feed and staff that you know, to support, and everything else that goes with it. I really find that interesting. And it felt like it took me, and I guess looking back, it didn't take me that long, but it felt like it took me a while to get into a product area, which I'm really passionate about, versus a services area. But I don't know if I needed that experience to sort of find the problem and find that spot. And so you kind of have to go through it, right? Like, it's just, you know, I wouldn't have understood cash flow until you suffer from it. And to suffer from it, I had to have a business, and I had to go through 2008. I had to go through 2009 to understand that. And so it was just, you know, part of the journey, but it feels to me like it took a long time to dive into product, I suppose.
Okay. Well, you did mention passion. I want to bring that up for people, is that, and I say this from time to time, is that whatever you do from an entrepreneurial or a business owner's perspective, for me anyway, wanting to get out of bed is the passion. I mean, not just making money or not just having an agency. And I don't like agencies either myself, just because I don't like that model, but it's important to have a reason to get out of bed in the morning. Changing the world is a great reason. It's a fine reason. It works.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's true. And and it can be obviously incredibly stressful for entrepreneurs and daily. And you want to feel like you're moving the needle, like personally, that you're doing something that you really feel matters. And, you know, it's not up to me to decide what people believe matters, but for me, that's how it makes it a lot easier than to feel like you're just, you know, on the treadmill and you're just paying salaries. It's harder to get up and out of bed and be excited about that for me personally.
The money in and of itself for me is not the main driver. I mean, like you said, yeah, you got to pay the bills. Yeah, you got to have, you got to put, you have mouths to feed, but that's not the main reason.
Yeah.
It has to be
exactly.
Super. Blaine, thank you very, very much for taking time today. Really appreciate everything you shared. It's time to wrap up. Anything that you want to close with that you have to offer the listeners that may help them?
Yeah, well, you know, especially right now during the COVID crisis here, we know businesses are struggling mightily. And over at Dry Run, we're cash flow management and forecasting tool, and we're just about helping people make it simpler and faster to understand where they're headed, make better decisions. And if you're in need of some help there, just please come visit us at dryrun.com. We've got a 30-day trial there. We've got some great COVID pricing on right now. Feel free to reach out to any of our team. We'd love to chat with you.
Super. And I'll make sure that I have all those links and contact information in the show notes and the description for wherever we post this. So thanks again. Really appreciate it. Thanks everyone for listening. Have a safe, productive week and be the very best at whatever you are. Until next time, this is Tad Stevens with Micro Success Secrets. Bye for now.